It is just wonderful to be able to do this. Francis, you were talking. I mean, I just when we think about the conversations we just had, how powerful storytelling is, and I think about Bill's presentation earlier. Maybe Francis, maybe I very quickly I want to go to you. In Hong Kong, when you work with your philanthropists and when you work with your donors, how much of the impact storytelling part do you actually invest in? I know you have a whole team for that. You almost have a whole social enterprise for that. What goes into it, and how much resources do you actually build into that? Oops. We will let the guys very quickly sort out the tech side of things. Maybe I'll jump very quickly now to Bill first. Bill, can we hear you?
Yes, I think so.
Can
Hopefully,
you can you please pass your mic to Francis?
I'll do my best. It's going to be a heck of a toss, though.
That would be really nice. Hey, we were talking about storytelling. You have plenty of stories. So, in sharing and founders coming together and actually pitching to philanthropists and donors, what are your advice for them if they are starting their journey? How do you think they should pitch? What should they tell? Sometimes, we talk about 2-minute pitches, but ends up being 20 minutes, just like my opening that I ran so much over time. So what would your advice be to young founders who are doing? What would the storytelling be like for them?
The the thing that happens that I've seen so often is folks get so tied up in the why, in the how, because they're in the thick of it. They're doing it. They're dealing with the nuts and bolts and the lines on the spreadsheet and the lines of code and the how is the way it works and it's what it does, but the why is what changes lives. It's what gets people on your team. It's what changes the world, because the why is the reason that entrepreneur is doing it in the first place. And so it often is personal and it's deep. Um, and so it can be difficult sometimes to tell those stories. Um, but I think that's the part that is the most important. The
No,
other,
yeah.
more
Go ahead.
tactical advice is when you ask for money, you get advice. And when you ask for advice, you get money. So
That that is that is really good advice. Bill, can I have some advice from you, please?
I mean, happy to share it, but like all of you should take,
No, that
the best entrepreneurs are the ones who are like know which advice to pay attention to and which not to. And usually they don't pay attention
yes.
to
But I,
those
I, I
advice.
can tell, judging by the reaction that we have in this room, that advice you gave was a very, very good one. Hey, Francis, I think we have you back online.
Yes,
Let's
I hope
try
you
that.
can hear me now.
Yes, we can. Yes, we can. We were talking about just how when we pitch to funders and donors, I was particularly interested in how the impact storytelling side that you are investing in Hong Kong, and how in what shape and form is that having together. And let me give you a very quick context, because in our space in Singapore, often when we want to increase the capacity of organizations, we sometimes hire fundraising managers as one of our first stops. And we get that in a lot of our requests. But sometimes when we have fundraising managers, we don't have a compelling story to tell. We're like putting the cart before the horse. So one of the conversations we are having with a lot of charities on the ground now is more than just hiring a fundraising manager. It's really getting your story told, your story being compelling and just a tightening of what your pitch is. The fundraising manager will need the tools to go out. How are we creating the tools? And I like what Bill said, it's really personal. So can you share with us in Hong Kong what you are doing in the impact storytelling space?
Yeah, definitely. I think that the space need more marketing people coming in instead of
True.
just a fund manager and things. But I have to say that I've always told my colleagues that the Majority Trust has been doing a great demonstrations. Your work, your marketing is so great. So I think, but because we think that's very important apart from the monetary impact, direct impact that we created, how can we make it an advocacy? and movement, or even a prophecy. So if you're marketing in a better way, you are in a better way to collaborate more to different sectors. For example, the business sectors, they're quite willing and eager to work with us. But I think the first thing we need to do is get ourselves to be prepared. And in a way that how can we market to different channels, different people? I see that a lot of nonprofit or foundations, they have been so shy, they have been too humble in what the work that they have done. And then after doing that, they say, hey, it's full stop. But I think they didn't try to make the marketing that they have different ways in talking to different people. And we see that all these foundations or SPOs, after they've done reshuffle their marketing, there is a higher chance for them to collaborate with different people or different source of capital. So I think in a way that is totally big exponential factor if we can create the impact media or impact storytelling in a better way. So we even set up our own impact media team right now. So
Nice.
we got some media and marketing professionals helping to equip to build capacity for our SPOs as well.
I like that, and I hear there's funding available at Fast Forward. So you guys may want to. Shannon, I want to bring you in here. When we talk about accelerators, especially what you are doing in San Francisco, it's more than just the resource. You bring them together, you have a boot camp and so on. What are some of the capacity building you do for them? At the Lam Soon New Horizon, what we have been trying to do is to make it more than just money. So we have our mentors here with us to make sure that they get the ball rolling. We build capacity building programs and development master classes and so on. What do you guys do at Fast Forward to help the founders really be ready for scale?
Yeah, we're with you. We think that founders need primarily three things. They need access to networks, they need access to capital, and they need access to other founders that have similar lived experience. The journey of being a founder is particularly lonely, and it can be really hard when you're working in the social impact space. So, community amongst founders is one of the most important things. And often from that community, more funding, more connections follow. So, we spend a lot of time on that. But like Francis and Bill, we spend a ton of time on storytelling. We really believe that people give to people. So you have to center your organization's story in your personal story. It's one of the reasons it's so important to have lived experience with the problem, but also to be really close to your customers and see yourself in your customers. Only then can you tell an authentic story that works. So we spend a ton of time on that. And then we teach tips and tricks to bringing in the money. So how to set yourself up for success, how to right size your ask, how to tell an impact story that is grounded in product, which sometimes can be hard. Not all philanthropists are excited about technology, but everyone I think is excited about teaching children to read or feeding hungry families or helping folks access human rights in the country in which they live.
And one of the key things in terms of any accelerator, the tips and tricks are so important. But it's one thing that Bill was talking about, which is actually providing safety. And I thought that was a really good point. I want to go to the Mentimeter very soon for some of the questions that the audiences are asking. But Shannon, I want to go to you in terms of how does Fast Forward build the idea and the concept of safety within your accelerator program?
We spend a lot of time on it. We meet now virtually every week for 3 hours, 3 days a week. And we spend a ton of time building community with private circles. We bring in founders who've run scaled tech nonprofits to talk about how they got there. We spend a lot of energy creating authentic exchanges because we feel like that's where folks learn the most. And then I protect the founders ferociously, like they're my own kids. So if we find a funder or an investor that is not behaving in a way that I like, we may not recommend them going forward. So there's a lot of our role as early investors in accelerators and incubators is to position our founders for success. And I take that really seriously.
And it's also the curation of the kind of funders and philanthropists that actually are like-minded in heart and in spirit, because that's the way to actually build a culture, don't you think?
Absolutely. And actually, you know, Fast Forward wrote a book on how to start and scale a tech nonprofit. It's free and available to everyone. We encourage you to check it out. All of our tips and tricks are open source now.
Awesome. We like that. Bill, I thought I'd very quickly ask you to expand on the topic of safety, because risk is always there when we talk about startups, and some will fail. But how do we fail forward? I think that's one book that many people read. But in your mind, when you talked about safety, would you expand on that a little bit? How do we, as an infrastructure, as an ecosystem, as funders, as government, how do we create safety so that people can fail safely and learn from it?
I think it really goes back to what Shannon was talking about, how, people fund people, and that organizations are made up of humans, and that an entrepreneur is a person, and a person doesn't fail, right? Person learns. People may make mistakes, or they may have ideas that perhaps might not work, but if you support the person and if you stand by the person, failures become strengths, they become growth, they become learning. And so it's about having a belief in the people. And so I think that's part of it. Yeah, I think Shannon said it exactly right.
Yeah.
That it's about the people, and that creating a place for people to thrive enables them to come up with the ideas and the products and the things that
Yep.
that make a difference.
That is so true, right? At the end of the day, a large part of any successful startup lies with the founder and the founding team and the people around it. When we were setting up the New Horizon Fund, I remember talking to the grant panel with our donors, and we were thinking, like, at what level do we arrange our order of priority, what we look at? And very quickly, we came to the conclusion that the quality of the founder is one of the key, most determinant factor whether we rate a project highly or not, and the team that the people have, because that's really the recipe of a really good startup. So I think that's awesome. Francis, we have a question on Mentimeter specifically for you. So I want to throw this very quickly to you. And for those in the audience and those live on YouTube, it's in the comment section. You can click on the link for the Mentimeter. Please ask away. Francis, at SVHK, do you face any dilemmas in how you approach your work? How do you leverage this to achieve impact? For example, I sometimes find business versus social goods. Business versus social goals, or a funder demands or demanding that I take me in a very, very different direction. It's really an order of priority, right? It's like there's always this competing demands on what you do. So how do you approach that? Does the funder get all the way? Does the charity get all the way? Do government get all the way? So how do you work in this very dynamic ecosystem? How about that?
Thank you so much for the questions. It is not easy, I have to say. But I think I always telling people in Hong Kong that I think I would say globally it's the new era of impact renaissance. I see that it's a collective awakening from different sectors that they need to rethink a new ways of working together for betterment of the world. So I would see that I enjoyed being founders of social enterprises. I like hanging around with all those founders. But I think in a way that do we just remain to be in this new and exciting, but yet rather small sectors, or we go mainstream to the business sectors or public sectors? We see that right now, maybe we have to pay more attention in change the ways that we're creating a change. So I think in different sectors we meet entrepreneur. So if we could influence the mainstream to work together, it's a better way. So in a way that how to keep our balance, I think in a way we see that maybe not the whole business sectors can work with us, but I think we spot the people. I think if Bill said falling in love with the problem, right now we are falling in love with the people. No matter they are founders of SBOs, I think we like entrepreneur. They are quite dedicatedly in impact from the business sectors. There are some public sectors people, government officials, they are quite keen in social innovations. We get them together. So in a way that if we could create a micro ecosystem of like-minded people, I would say we are a betterment in changing the mainstream well, because remain to be small in the minority, or we influence, penetrate our thinking, philosophy into the mainstream majority sectors. I think the later one might be more important. So although it's quite difficult to balance, but I think bit by bit, we're thinking about 10 years or 20 years later of the whole well, we need we don't need to forget about the mainstream, the majority of the sectors.
I like the word that you use as like a renaissance, because we feel the momentum here in Singapore as well, that really this whole impact investing, this whole philanthropy, coming and say that, you know what, let's really use research, let's use science and analytics to guide our giving, so that donors will know more. Tell us a little bit about your experience in your growth for SVHK, because your presentation was astounding, right? The kind of projects you go into, purpose properties, for example. I mean, that's a very, I wouldn't say it's a uniquely Hong Kong problem. It exists in San Francisco. It's a huge problem in San Francisco now. It's a huge problem in New York. It's becoming, I don't think it's a huge problem here in Singapore. But the reality is that how did some of these projects that you do come about? Is it a natural evolution? So one problem leads to another, and then you just keep opening up new purpose entities to a certain extent? Or are they started because you have different people that see things from different perspectives coming to you? Or is it funders to say, hey, I'm interested in funding this, and then you as an organization, you create that space? So I'm curious as to how you grew to be what you are today.
I think as to what you said earlier, I think holes are everywhere. But I think it comes all different, what you mentioned, we create our own projects. We see some, they have the idea but don't know how to take it forward. We see funders or corporate would like to do something on that issues. We provide advisory and ideas. But I think all the more we see these holes, it's not just a responsibility. We treat these holes as an engagement. Hey, there is a hole. Why don't we come around and see how we can work together? So I think we are right now leveraging, I would see that totally solving a problem, making a change, making a huge change, making an the impact is not just a responsibility. It's the right. Maybe it's a human right. So if we can get that right, we can get different people around. We work out our frame and impact storytelling that we can convince different people come together. That's a good way. So I think right now we don't just choose problems. They could come change, keep on evolving. But whatever problem, that will lead to the change, the ways that we are change making is more important right now.
And it's
We
really
call it the
builds,
infrastructure innovations.
yeah, and it's really Bill's point that, you know, the innovation can change. It can pivot. It can do different things, and maybe new people will come and try to look at the problem from a different perspective. Shannon, I want to very quickly ask you. Fast Forward is a technology accelerator and technology non-profit accelerator. How much of what you do you think we can build an accelerator that is non-technology? Do you think that is non-technology related, right? A traditional charity, for example, that doesn't use technology to scale, but requires a lot of volunteers and manpower to be able to create change. So how much of what you do at Fast Forward do you think is applicable to a non-technology setup? And if we will want to have something like that, what would your learnings and advice be to create a different kind of accelerator?
It's a great question. I think all nonprofits will be digitally transformed in the next 10 years. Like, you can't imagine starting a nonprofit that didn't use email and WhatsApp and Twitter and Facebook and other things to organize its members. So it's hard for me to imagine an organization that used no technology for efficiency. I would say the group's Fast Forward supports are product companies, but they're rarely building holistic products themselves. They're typically taking stuff off the shelf from Twilio and other product companies to match together a product for a new use case. And I think it would be great if soup kitchens were using logistics platforms to do their work. I think it would be amazing if in-person tutoring programs were leveraging Khan Academy and all of the free and cheap ed tech. So I think what we teach really could be applied to any nonprofit, because this is the way software is eating the world and nonprofits are just a little bit slow to the table.
But we will get there. And typically when a nonprofit comes in, the impact is tremendous across societies all around the world. Hey, when you have fun, time flies very quickly. I've just been told that we have only so much time left. Maybe in the last few minutes that we have, just maybe one advice from each of you. I know, Shannon, I've asked you this question earlier on, but I have a room of 150, and then we have almost 190 over people on YouTube. Really just listening in, and I really think it's a wonderful content that we have from you today. Just in each of you, what would your advice be from your vantage point, from your country? Knowing that not everything is transferable, I recognize that. But what would you share with us to everyone listening and watching in, your advice for them in terms of charting new horizons, looking for new things, or starting in a non-profit, in the charity space, be it technology and so on. So I'm dragging this on so that I give you a bit of time to think. So what is the one advice that you would give to everyone in this room, be it a donor, be it a philanthropist, be it a government official, or someone running an agency? What would that advice be? So, as with I'm going to start with, who should we start with? Bill. Okay, I hear Bill. So, Bill, you have been arrowed. In Singapore, we're not very good at volunteering, but we're very good at volunteering others. So, Bill, over to you. What's one advice?
That's called being voluntold.
Voluntold.
That's what that is. One advice. Things are impossible right up until the moment they're not. And what Shannon was just talking about, how most of these companies are built, and organizations are built out of putting new pieces together. There are so many pieces. There's so many tools. There's so many ideas. There's so many possibilities out there. And you can just start rearranging the world to be better. And so, just start.
Just start. Rearranging the world to be better. Thank you for that. Shannon.
I'm with Bill. I think we have huge problems and we don't have time for you to wait. So just start would be first. And maybe your first order of business is to find your people. It's a lot easier to build a good thing if you surround yourself with good people. And as Francis said, those good people are everywhere. They're in government, they're in foundations, they're also in the social sector. So find those people. And I hope you'll look to us. Fast Forward has open communities. We have open source all of our content. Please come check us out. We would welcome you to our world of tech nonprofit entrepreneurs.
Thank you very much. Francis, one advice would you give to everyone here?
I would still repeating that don't miss the chance of Impact Renaissance. I think it's a once in a lifetime opportunity for us to come together. So I think pay more attention on change the ways that change is made. So I think don't just stop at the easy way. If you are a funder, many of you are maybe here, don't just write a check. Find Majurity Trust. They have so much more way for you to make the exponential ways.
We didn't arrange this, by the way. I just want to say that we didn't arrange this at all.
I'll send you an invoice very soon. But I think pay more attention in how to make the exponential factor. Don't just stop at that. And then like Shannon and Bill said, I think I totally influenced by Bill. I fall in love with the problem. We always forget. We're always in the upstream thinking about the money, how to raise funds. But I think we are not enjoying how to solve the problems right now. So we need to get more people around the whole. I think that's very important.
We can all cover the whole together. Hey, I'm not going to let Francis go without bringing Le Hui on the line. Is Le Hui with you? Where is she? Can she come over to your camera? The reason why I bring Le Hui was...
yeah. Yes, she is just around. So I'll
Let's bring her on. The reason why, if you hear her sharing earlier, Le Hui is a Singaporean. So Le Hui has been in Hong Kong for quite a while. You're muted, Le Hui. And I can't pass on this opportunity to bring her online just to share a little bit about what she has been doing. Can you hear us? Okay, you're still on mute. It was quite funny because when we were doing our pre-calls, I was talking to Francis and Le Hui. And as we were talking and talking, I keep looking at her, I keep hearing her. I said, you must be a Singaporean. Because everything that we were talking about was about food. So as you can tell, so Shannon and Bill, this is what we do to our own countrymen. We put them on the spot. We bring them on and more earthly time during the session. But really, I think what she's doing in Hong Kong and this, it's great. So Le Hui, I think we're having some difficulties. Would you maybe rejoin? Okay, we'll give it some time. So Bill and Shannon, this is what we do. We put them on the spot. But one of the reasons why I want to bring Le Hui on is because she has, after an internship in Hong Kong, decided to stay in Hong Kong and be working with Francis at SVF HK for I think the last 6 or 7 years now. And I thought her experience being both coming from a Singapore background and working in Hong Kong and seeing some of the things they're doing, I thought it'd be good. I just want to just jojo her a bit and say why she's not in Singapore. But hey, while we're waiting her to come on, Shannon, Bill, maybe just coming back very quickly to end our session with you. What can we do in Singapore that might be of help and of, sometimes when we have guest speakers, it's always unidirectional. It's what we're sharing. But sometimes we don't ask the question, what can we be of use, or how can we help what you guys are doing? Is it to open up opportunity for Fast Forward to be here, for Help Kitchen to set up shop here and stuff like that? So what are some of the things that we can help doing what you guys are doing over there?
Yeah, from Fast Forward's perspective, we would love to see more tech nonprofits come out of Asia. There really have only been a handful that came out of Singapore and Hong Kong and China, and some in other parts of South Asia. So we'd love to see more. So if you have heard of a tech nonprofit, if you are running a tech nonprofit, please reach out to us. We have a ton of resources that we can give you, and we want to help.
Very cool. And Bill? No, now it's New York. Welcome to the world of technology, folks. The only person that doesn't have a problem is the accelerator of a tech startup. So, Bill, come. What's one thing we can help you with?
I'd say share what you learn. You all are going to learn so much with this work that you've been doing. You've learned so much with the work you've been doing, and the new accelerator you all are building. You're going to learn so much building that accelerator. We, seeing things through this tech perspective, there has to be things that are different and new and important about building an accelerator that's not specifically for tech. And so, what do you learn? How can we learn from you? Can we have you over and you can do this same thing and we can interrogate you over here next year?
After what I did to you, I'll probably run away, bro. Well, we would love to do that. I'm pretty sure there'll be gonna be a lot of lessons ahead of us. One of the things that we're trying to build is also to learn how to fail forward. Not everything we have done has turned out well, and we're trying to learn along the way. Le Hui, do we have you?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes. I was just telling all about you. While you were away, I was telling them your deepest, darkest secret. No, well, I was just saying that you're a Singaporean. No, just saying that you're a Singaporean in Hong Kong. I just really wanted to bring you on the screen because I think what you are doing there is truly inspiring. Maybe in just very quickly, would you share with us how you end up in Hong Kong and why have you stayed?
I started out in Hong Kong, actually in finance. I was in investment banking, and then after a few years of investment banking, I quit, and somehow, just like fate brought me to SVHK. I think what made me stay is, if I could like borrow from what has everybody talking about today about falling in love. Like I really fell in love with Hong Kong.
Who is
This is
he?
a
Sorry, yeah.
such an interesting place. Uh, you have so many layers of complexity. There are the very rich people, there are the very poor people, and a lot of very different kinds of challenges that we have been facing here. But I think what really energizes me the most is like when you meet a lot of people, as like Francis shared. Like we work with a lot of businesses, we work with a lot of NGOs, and everybody is super into just wanting this place to be a better place and believing that our every little effort that each one of us puts in will lead to something better, and for a better future that we all believe in. So I think it's really the energy and the spirit of the Hong Kong people that really touched me, and I really want to be part of that better future as well.
That is awesome. I just want to say, all of us here, we're very proud of what you are doing there. Keep doing it and really hope that you will come back to Singapore and bring all the lessons that you have. Maybe a round of applause for Le Hui. And bring Francis back
Yes, I'll
on.
definitely be back in Singapore.
Yes, you will. Can I just say it has been a real pleasure, Francis, Shannon, Bill. I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. I'm so glad we can do this. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please put a big round of applause, including on YouTube, our speakers, Francis, Shannon, and Bill. Thanks very much.